Once again, welcome to Hiring Our Heroes Virtual Career Committee. This is Transition Tuesday. It's an honor to be here. I'm your host for today's session. My name is Adam Rock. I am one of the senior directors here at Hiring Our Heroes, and I'm just really proud of the community we've developed virtually here to bring education and content to our transitioning service members, those veterans, those military spouses, and today, particular attention to those military caregivers. We've got a great panel here. There's about 3 folks that are going to join me in just a second, representing 2 great organizations. First, the Elizabeth Dole Foundation will join us, and then we'll follow up with the Department of Defense / Defense Health Agency with some content as well, and then we'll do some Q&A. But before I get started, administratively, if you look on your screen, there are 2 tabs. There's a Q&A tab and a chat box. We would like for you to ask your questions. You may type them into the Q&A tab, and we will answer those either throughout or at the completion of the presentations. But if you accidentally type it into the chat box, we'll answer that just as well. So I draw your attention, though, to the Q&A tab if possible. So we're gathered, though, by Artesia Ortiz. She's going to be presenting to us in a little bit. She's from Department of Defense Health Agency. She's a Federal Recovery Coordination Program Caregiver Support Lead. And we're also gathered by Rashi Romanoff. She's the Vice President of Programs and Partnerships at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. And we're also gathered from the Elizabeth Dole Foundation by my dear friend, Molly Ramsey. She's one of the managers there of the policy and programs. And I have worked with both organizations, but the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and Molly in particular, we worked together in a previous employment space before, and I'm proud of her and what she's doing. I'm also proud of Stephen Schwab, my good friend, and the program we created at Elizabeth Dole Foundation. And as well, I'm a shout out to a former soldier for life who's at the Magellan Federal running the DHA program we're going to hear today, Ronna Trent, Lieutenant Colonel from retired. So thank you, Ronna, for you and your team being here today. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn the reins over now to Molly and then to Rashi to lead us through their presentation about employment and caregiver resources from the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. So please take it away.
Terrific. It's great to be here today, and I want to just thank our terrific partners at Hiring Our Heroes. We've been working with them on some issues related to employment really since the beginning that we took this issue on, and definitely since the early days of the foundation. And so we're so happy to participate in today's webinar and to talk a little bit about this issue, which is of really great importance, I think, at all times, but then specifically right now. I think the current crisis has really illuminated some real opportunities around caregiver employment and flexibilities and things like that. So I think this is a really timely topic for us to tackle today. You can go on to the next slide, and I can talk a little bit about, and the next slide, just who the Elizabeth Dole Foundation is. We were founded in 2012 by Senator Elizabeth Dole after she personally spent, close to a year caring for her husband at Walter Reed. And I think during that period of time, she met countless military and veteran families who, for some as suddenly as overnight, for others, over the period of many, many years, had really transformed their role as spouse or loved one or friend, and really had taken on a bulk of caregiving duties within the home. And so our foundation is really focused on empowering, supporting, and honoring our nation's military caregivers. I think while VA and DoD have a number of different resources available for veterans and service members, whenever you look at the sort of ecosystem or landscape of resources available for caregivers, oftentimes the supplies are much more limited. And so that's really what EDF is focused on, and working with partners like Hiring Our Heroes and DHA and others, we're really excited to sort of call attention to specific issues related to caregiving support, of which today we're talking a bit about employment. And just to sort of, our take on employment in this population is we really want to foster and contribute to a nationwide labor market that creates flexible opportunities for caregivers, and really celebrates caregivers as HR assets. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. You can go on to the next slide, which talks a little bit about what we know about caregiver employment. Our RAND report, which was released in 2014, was really the first major piece of research released dedicated to this issue and this cause of military and veteran caregivers. Before this was released, there wasn't really that much known about caregivers beyond the fact that, they were providing a lot of care for injured veterans and service members within the home. The RAND report, really put our stake in the ground and said this is an issue for the foundation, and this is really one that the whole country and all different sectors should be participating in. So the one thing that it did is it identified and sort of quantified the number of military caregivers we have. So nationwide, we have 5.5 million military and veteran caregivers across the United States. And by a lot of averages, this is from 2014, that number has likely only increased. The report goes through a number of different facets of sort of the impact of caregiving, but we're obviously here today to talk a little bit about employment. And so we pulled some of the most relevant stats related to caregiver employment from that report. And just to sort of summarize, we know that, almost half of post 9/11 caregivers have had to make adjustments to their work, and 60% have said that it's caused a financial strain on their household. And on average, about 16% of caregivers have reported that they've had to either, move to a job with less pay or a job that perhaps provides fewer benefits to better accommodate their role of caregiving for their injured service member or veteran. If you go to the next page, you'll get to learn a little bit about what we've done. So over the last 2 years, the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, together with the Chamber of Commerce and Hiring Our Heroes, and with our partners at AARP, we actually developed this Supporting Military and Veteran Caregivers in the Workplace toolkit. And it's really designed to provide free and practical advice to employers on how best they can support working family military caregivers within the workplace. The toolkit is available online. We have a link to it towards the end. And what we wanted to do was just walk through a couple of different elements of the toolkit, which we think will be most helpful for this audience. So the next slide talks a little bit about who was on our task force. So we mentioned AARP and Hiring Our Heroes were our main partners, but we also assembled, leading HR and employer experts from a number of different organizations, everything from Amazon to Bank of America to Hilton, Phillips. We tried to choose organizations representing a variety of different sectors to really think about one, what are the key challenges facing family caregivers, and what is that they're facing in the workplace? And then second, what are some of the key challenges that employers are facing whenever they're trying to accommodate employees who might be family caregivers? So the toolkit and a lot of the work we've done is it's targeting both audiences. It's targeting both caregivers as well as employers so that together we can really try to make American workplaces more caregiver friendly. From there, we outlined some key strategies that employers could implement, as soon as today or tomorrow or this week, to really better make their workplaces more caregiver friendly. So an example would be, increasing the number of positions with flexible schedules or remote possibilities. This has always been a really big need within the caregiving community. And I think, it's one that as we think about COVID-19, I'm obviously working from home, teleworking myself. I think probably everyone who's joining me as a panelist today is likely working from home. So I think as we think about telework and remote possibilities, I think this is something that's likely very much going to transform, for the rest of 2020 and maybe even beyond when we think about how employers are going to think about where their employees need to be and what they really need to be investing in. So that was one of the strategies we talked about within the toolkit. We also talked about, creating customized benefits, expanding leave policies, looking at employee assistance programs and leveraging employee resource groups to ensure that employees are receiving adequate care and support within the workplace, and potentially are meeting with other employees in your organization that are working through similar challenges. And then as well as, peer and leadership support considerations. So there's a lot of strategies that, for the employers that might be joining on today's call, there's a bunch of different things in there, and we'll get into that in just a second, but that's kind of a preview of some of the topics that were covered. The next slide gives you a little bit of a sneak peek at some case studies. So in addition to sort of tip sheets and resources, we wanted to really include some real life examples of employment challenges that we've heard about from directly from caregivers themselves. I think, as much as we sort of talk at a high level on calls like this or through toolkits, once you individually meet someone and learn about their story and learn about some of the challenges they face, you sort of have a better understanding. And I think as an HR professional or as an employer, you have an opportunity to think about a unique situation that might fit them. I think one thing that, continues to sort of to resonate is that, while this caregiving issue is very, very acute in the military and veteran population, it's one that increasingly, I think, all employers are considering. I think, family caregivers, civilian caregiving, with baby boomers getting older, whether it's the sandwich generation that's now taking care of their parents and their children. This issue is one that is increasingly resonating with all different kinds of employers for both their military and veteran employees as well as their civilian employees. So I think it's one that people recognize that they want to get this issue right, and they want, it's a competition for talent, and so they want to be able to attract and be as hospitable of an employer as possible. So it's really been an issue that's evolved quite a bit over the last 2 years, and I suspect as a result of this year and just in general, I think, with COVID-19, a lot more people have been thinking about caregiving issues. I know in my family, we've had a lot of discussions like, what happens if, something happens to mom or dad, or in other families might be grandma and grandpa. And so I think people are starting to more proactively think about this. And so over the coming months, I know we're tracking this closely. I know Hiring Our Heroes is as well, to sort of see what changes might be happening in sort of response to this. The next couple slides, I wanted to just show you our tip sheets. So we have our tip sheet for employers. So towards the back of our toolkit, we designed it. It's 2 pages. You can actually just tear it out if you are working at an organization or if you're in HR. And really, this, as you see on the slide, it's a bulleted list of what employers and what companies can do, to be more caregiver friendly. And it might be everything as much as, reviewing your employee handbook and changing some of the language there. It might include some of the remote and flexible work opportunities. It really ranges a full gamut of different options. Some of them might be quite transformational and might take, years to really institute. And a lot of them, you could do this month and sort of take to your leadership this month. So we sort of designed a mix of high and low intensive strategies that employers could be, undertaking to really make their workplaces more caregiver friendly. The next page talks a little bit about some tips for caregivers, which I wanted to share for any caregivers that are joining us today. There's really a lot of different things you can do. These are just some high level ones to get the ball rolling, if you will. One is, review your resume with a friend or family member, or just, someone who you think will give you honest feedback and someone who you trust. Oftentimes, I think having someone else look at it, you just always get a different point of view. If you're already employed, another thing you can do is you can reach out to your company's HR team and ask them if they have any resources that are, specifically tailored for veterans or for military spouses. It's really great to sort of ask them, and if they don't have any, if you have the capacity, volunteer to help them design some of these. I think, the tip sheets for caregivers, have outlines a bunch of different things that companies can do. And I think what we've found in talking with our fellows in our network is sometimes championing these efforts within your own company really establishes you as a leader. So that can also be a really great place to start. Also, you can register with hiddenheroes.org, which is the Elizabeth Dole Foundation's registry for our caregiver community. We also have our Hidden Heroes Caregiver Community group on Facebook. We often share relevant webinars, resources, and at times even, job listings that are only relevant for military and veteran caregivers. So it's a really good resource to just stay connected on this topic. And right now we're actually offering a LinkedIn premium offering subscription. So you'll have 1 year of free LinkedIn premium access to any caregiver who joins our community or is an existing member of our community. So if you're interested in reaching out and accessing that, LinkedIn Premium has, it's great. It has connections to job listings. There's training available. It really has a number of different offerings that are great. And we're so excited to team up with LinkedIn to make this available to caregivers. So if you have any questions about that, I'll put the email and sort of directions on how to access in the chat box so that you can get in touch with us. And then the last two resources I wanted to just flag are, our Hiring Our Heroes Caregiver Fellowship. This is something that we've worked really closely with the Chamber on, and we're really excited about. And then the second one is our partnership with Blue Star Families around Spouse Force, which is a curated job listing of different opportunities for caregivers and for military spouses. And I included, I think it's actually on the slide before, but it's not a big deal. I included the links to both of those resources within the slides themselves so that you can go and take a look and see if these are things that are, either available in your area or are things that, might apply to your current situation. So I want to keep it under 10 minutes because I know we have a lot of different content to go through, but that's sort of what I wanted to get through today. We included some pages, some quotes from some of our task force members on the next slide. Just some common themes that we were hearing around, what they as employers are facing. So that's included there. And then the final slide on 11 has a link to where you can actually access the toolkit online. You can go to that webpage right now. You can also request that they mail a copy of it to your house. So that's all we have from the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. Looking forward to answering any questions you may have.
Great job, Rashi. Really appreciate all the work and effort that you guys have put into it. And I'll just quickly touch on, you talked about the corporate fellowship program or the caregiver fellowship program. Thanks for your partnership with Hiring Heroes. For all of you listening, if you're interested, she gave you the link to the website. That is aligned with our military spouse fellowship program. It is a 6-week internship program. For those of you listening, is it a paid internship program? We'll give you $15 per hour. That's what we'll pay. It's at 8 different locations right now. You can find those locations on the website, and it is open to career-ready spouses right now. So I encourage you, if you're interested in partnering with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and Hiring Heroes for a fellowship, to use that as a resource. So thank you, Rashi, very much. Okay, I'm going to go shift gears, and I'm going to turn it over right now to Artesia Ortiz, if you're out there, and you can take us through your portion of the briefing on the Defense Health Agency and what you're doing to help employers, caregivers, and the resources that you have, please.
All right, I'm here. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Artesia Ortiz. I'm the Caregiver Support Lead for the Recovery Coordination Program, Warrior Care, as part of the Defense of Health Agency. Today, I'm going to be focused more on resources available to caregivers and available for military families. I'm just going to, if you can go to the next slide, I'll start with a brief background of our programs. In the year of 2008, the National Defense Authorization Act was developed to improve the care, management, and transition of recovering service members under the Department of Defense and Veteran Affairs. So they worked together to create this act. And as a result, came the Warrior Care, the Office of Warrior Care. It was established to develop policy for and provide oversight of the military department's implementation. So Within that implementation, we oversee the programs supporting wounded, ill, and injured service members, their families, and caregivers. The Wounded Warrior programs that we provide assist service members and their families through various stages of recovery, rehabilitation, reintegration, which may cover going back to duty or transitioning into civilian life. Our primary duty is to oversee and implement policy that standardizes the non-medical care for wounded, ill, and injured service members across the military departments throughout the continuum of care. We're also tasked with monitoring and reporting the accessibility, the utilization, and the performance of the Department of Defense service-led warrior care programs. You can find our programs on military treatment facilities and installations all across the country. So you can find representatives that will be able to assist in all different locations. So how do we accomplish the task that I mentioned during the last slide? We have several different programs within the recovery coordination overarching program that have different functions, programs and initiatives that have different functions that we all work together to assist military families with needs and identify resources and support. But for the purpose of the presentation today, I'm going to focus mostly on the National Resource Directory in addition to the caregiver support. If you all are wanting more information about the other programs that we offer under the Recovery Coordination Program, you can find out more details on our website at warriorcare.dodlive.mil. And that's also going to be listed within the references section. And I can also post it in the chat area also. So let's start with the National Resource Directory. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the National Resource Directory is a searchable database. It provides over 14,000 vetted resources, and it'll give you information about opportunities and resources for service members, veterans, family members, in addition to caregivers. It's a free application, and it doesn't require that you log in or provide a password or a requirement of a CAC or a PIV or a profile to access it or to use it. So it's open for everyone to get the information, no matter what your background. When connecting through the website and accessing the hyperlinks and utilizing the search features, you'll find a mass of information. And the information will link you to resources and services specific to your search. So it's just a wealth of information in one portal that will link you to organizations that may provide support for employment, in addition to education, finances, anything that you might think of, you will probably find it within the National Resource Directory. Okay, so I'm going to shift to the caregiver support, the Division of Caregiver Support. Under the Division of Caregiver Support, our mission is to connect with caregivers to provide support and resources as both the service member and the caregiver continue to move through their own unique recovery process. A caregiver may be identified as a parent, a friend, a sibling, or they may be in the military, they may not be in the military. They may be anyone designated to assist wounded, ill, and or injured service members. We've assisted over 30,000 caregivers identifying needs and additional supports and need of resources. A popular requested resource, which we have developed, and you'll see an image of the Caregiver Resource Directory to the right of the slide. It's a free resource. It's published annually. and it's provided in a hard copy. It can also be found on our website. You can view it on our website, or you can download it through the website. And then you can also request by email for us to ship this specific resource directly to you. The Caregiver Resource Directory is designed to help and empower military caregivers. The topics range from employment, education, benefits, behavioral health, and several other topics that it address. Inside the booklet, you'll discover information filtered from the National Resource Directory, which I mentioned in the prior slide. So we filter the information from that large National Resource Directory of vetted resources, and then we've tailored within this Caregiver Resource Directory, we've tailored the resources more so for caregivers and military families. So the Caregiver Resource Directory, you'll find more than 500 resources, national and local vetted resources that will offer you information or connection to entities such as nonprofit organizations, veteran service organizations, and government programs. So for caregivers wanting to connect with other caregivers for support or encouragement or advice or just social interaction, you can do this through participation in person at a peer forum. Well, before the coronavirus restrictions, that this was more so of an option, and it may be after. Or you can do it virtually through the virtual peer forum. Both platforms allow caregivers a safe place to unite and to discuss their caregiver journey. But they're, as I said before, they're different settings and different structures. So if we can go to the next slide. For the peer forums, they're usually held on the installations throughout the country with a military family life counselor as the designated facilitator. They bring to a group setting a specific topic that will be addressed for that group session. And the military family life counselor will direct the caregivers to provide their feedback and also share any experiences that they may have and monitor the peer forums while face-to-face. For the virtual forums, it's currently held through a secure teleconference line. We're looking into branching off and having an option for video. So that will be something that we'll possibly have as an alternative if you are not wanting to just call in, but also see someone, especially with us being in the home. We'll sometimes want to just connect with someone or see someone by video. So we're hoping that that will be an option in the future for the virtual peer forums. Caregivers create the direction of the virtual peer forums. There's no military family life counselor to facilitate. Most of the caregivers come on the line and they do check-ins with each other. They discuss their challenges that they may have. They receive direct support from the caregivers, from their peers, and also helpful resources. All right, next slide, please. So what you'll see here is a map with contact information and divisions that will identify different regions where peer support coordinators would be able to assist. If you find that you might need assistance with navigating through the CRD or need additional support, or you prefer to interact with the person to identify resources that you may be in need of, or additional support that you may be in need of, you can reach out to a peer support coordinator nationwide. You will find additional contact information on our website. at warriorcare.dodlive.mil/caregiver-resources. On the main page, you'll find a caregiver resources tab with a drop-down list. That list will link you to the peer support coordinators page. And once you reach that page, there you will be able to view all the contact information, and you'll also be able to see the regional map. You may also want to connect with the peer support coordinator during participation in multiple events that might be on installation or with collaboration of nonprofit organizations. So they're available to you to provide you with information and support when needed. Peer support coordinators are also in the field to support military caregivers and caregiver stakeholders. So they do this by assisting in convening military caregiver peer forums, conducting outreach activities for caregivers, identifying and reporting gaps in support, assisting in locating and providing information on military caregiver support services, and assisting as a military caregiver's point of contact. So they have a number of roles that they play while they're out in the field. And especially during the time where we've had COVID-19 restrictions, they are a wonderful source as far as receiving updates on what resources are available during this crisis, and in addition to how to recover from this. So if you needed information about, assistance with finances or behavioral health, they would be a great source to assist you with local resources and national resources that may be identified just during this crisis situation. All right. And if you can go to the next slide, please. So here you'll just see our references. You'll be able to review the information if you wanted to after this presentation. Next slide, please. And here you'll find my contact information. Again, my name is Artisha Ortiz. I'm the Caregiver Support Lead. You'll also find details of our government leads, Ms. Sandra Mason and Mr. Jonathan Morris. So that'll be additional information if you wanted to reach out to them. You have that. All right. So that concludes my presentation.
I'm back on camera, Artesia. Great job. Appreciate all the efforts that you and DHA are doing and your whole team. Great information, and it is complementary to a lot of things that are going on out there. So I appreciate it. So as I was off camera, I went ahead and I tested the NRD, National Resource Directory, and I typed in the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and immediately it came up, and it took me right to the website. So that's a great link. I've been an advocate for many years. The 14,000 plus resources that you have in there. I'm glad to see Elizabeth Dole Foundation is in there, and I'm sure Hiring Our Heroes is in there just as well. So thanks for what you're doing. Why don't I ask you a couple questions, and I'm not going to leave Molly or Rashi out as well. So maybe there's an opportunity to tag team, maybe not directly or indirectly some of these, but I have some of my own just as well for you. For those of you listening, if you do have a question particular to these two organizations, please feel free to type it into the Q&A tab. There's not a long waiting list, so I promise I'll get to your question. So for Artesia real quick, is there a fee to connect with a peer support coordinator, participate in the caregiver forums, or request a copy of the caregiver resources directory? Can you answer that, please?
Yes. So no, there's no fee to be connected to a peer support coordinator and to be provided with support. There's no fee in order to request a caregiver resource directory or to download it off of our website. And there's no fee for participating or joining any of our peer forums.
That's great. And I'm going to ask Rashi and Molly almost the same thing. I mean, it's an assumption that there's no fee, but that's a really good question, though. Is there any charge or any fee at all for any of the resources that you guys provide from your great organization?
No, everything is free at charge. Whether it's registering at our website at hiddenheroes.org or the LinkedIn premium offering we have right now or the toolkit itself, everything is free.
Yeah, good, good. And for Artisha, the question is, are the forms confidential? Can you reiterate that, please?
Yes. So the virtual peer forum, it's held through a secure phone line provided directly from the Pentagon. So it is a secure line that we use, and we're currently in the process of trying to get a secure line or a secure portal for video as well, going forward. The peer forums, which are held face to face, they're in a secure setting on the installation with a licensed military family and life counselor, which they are all trained to ensure confidentiality. So yes, and in addition to the line being secure for the virtual forums, we also do a vetting process where we ask for information and details to just verify that only caregivers are on the line for those specific forums.
Great. How about that third question? Are there resources listed in the Caregiver Resource Directory that can link me with organizations addressing employment and career transition?
Yes, within the Caregiver Resource Directory, you'll find an entire section filtered just for employment and caregiver transition information.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Molly and Rashi a little bit about your website too. This is a good opportunity about your website, and maybe just kind of tell some of the listeners here about some of the resources you have and how they might connect with you've got employment, you've got caregiver, you've got a really great website. I was on it all this morning. Maybe talk about that for a second, Rashi.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll ask Molly to chime in as well. Our website has an outline of all the different programs that we offer. As I mentioned, employment is just one of the issues that we cover. We also talk a lot about, inclusive care environments, and we partnered with the VA on a clinical care program. We have our local engagement program with our Hidden Heroes Cities and Counties program, where we're working with local officials. I think for the folks on the phone, the one resource I would plug that I think is probably the most timely and up to date, and honestly just the easiest, you can do it from your phone, is to join our Hidden Heroes Caregiver community on Facebook. It's just HHCC Hidden Heroes Caregiver community, and I'll put it in the chat box. And this is really where, it's our digital peer platform. There's thousands of other registered caregivers on there. It's really only meant for military and veteran caregivers. So you'll have to submit a couple of things just to make sure that you're that you're part of the caregiving community. And really, it's a great platform. One of the things I think we have found is that it's a great place. Oftentimes caregivers ask people for advice. They share tips. If they're hiring, they post jobs, or they post different trainings that have been really helpful. It's a really good place if you're looking for, tips, advice, guidance, everything from, I'm not sure how to tackle this issue with my VA, to my employer is asking me about XYZ. It's just a really great sounding board to find other people in the same situation. So that Facebook group is really, for the caregivers on the phone, is where I would say it's probably the most helpful resource on a variety of different topics.
Rashi or Molly, are there restrictions? You brought up a good point, because I was about to go join it as well, but are there restrictions to join, or is it open to anyone? Because you just have a wealth of knowledge, and there's a lot of people who want to be advocates for everything that you do, and this is just a good way to push information to people. Are there any restrictions, as you indicated?
Yeah, I'll have Molly talk about sort of the criteria we ask for. The Facebook group is limited to only military and veteran caregivers. We sort of, and it's a question we get a lot, because I know a lot of times our supporters want to go in and sort of see what people are talking about, but we really try to maintain that as a safe space just for the caregiver community, so that it's not necessary. It's not like ads for different resources or plugs. We really try to keep that a safe place just where people can sort of ask questions and get advice. For other partner organizations or for employers that might be on the phone, we recommend everyone sign up at hiddenheroes.org, because that way you'll be getting, information about when we have these different toolkits available, or events around employment, or different launch events. So sort of the general community, we sort of steer towards joining hiddenheroes.org, and then our specific caregiver community, we steer towards the Facebook group. Molly, do you want to just chat about what the specifications are for HHCC?
Yeah, so I'm actually typing right now how to join either HHCC or even join hiddenheroes.org. And so in order to join this Facebook group, and it is vetted caregivers, so in order to be a member, you do have to register on our website, and then you will receive a follow-up email that says take next steps. And through that, you will get there should be a button where you can upload, and there should be a list of documents that we will accept. Your veterans DD 214, if you're enrolled in the program of comprehensive assistance for family caregivers at the VA, or you're in the general support program at the VA for caregivers, anything that kind of recognizes you as a formal caregiver, or again, your veteran or service members DD 214, or whatever it may be on the active duty side. Just showing that there is a need for a caregiver. And we don't have a disability rating, or only this era can join. We're open to all eras, all disability ratings, even those who don't necessarily have a VA recognized disability rating. It's really a great platform for caregivers, like Rashi was saying, to share those resources, but also to lift each other up. I always kind of joke with some other caregivers that I refer to is sometimes it becomes a venting tool of, you know what, I just had a really crappy day and here's why. And within 2 minutes, you see comments flooding in on that post saying, I've been through that too. Here's what I found was helpful, or if you need someone to talk to, feel free to reach out. And these are complete strangers from all different walks of life, but really it's a community that we built, and that the participants are really built as well. So I'm putting the information on how to join on the chat. So if you're interested, please check there.
Please do, Molly. Thanks for putting that on the chat. And now for Artesia, I do have a question about your NRD and the directories. Are those folks vetted, and how often, please?
Yes, they are vetted. For the National Resource Directory, they're vetted quarterly, and for the Caregiver Resource Directory, they're vetted annually.
Excellent. And then another question that came in our chat box for you as well. How do caregivers connect with VA caregiver peer support? It is noted as a resource on the VA's website, however, it does not note how we may access this resource. Artesia, can you tackle that one too?
So if they're wanting specifically a VA representative,
yes,
that's something different from a peer support coordinator. A peer support coordinator can assist an individual with linking and connecting to a VA representative. That could be something that could be provided as far as support and helping with the transition, but they're different. Right. Does that answer the question?
Pretty much so.
If not, more details as far as what you're looking for, I'll be able to either take a note and
no, you tackled it.
Okay.
There's a difference between the two, and so they'll be able to find the VA coordinators on the website just as well as be able to find your peer support coordinators.
All right.
How about let's go over to the to Rashi and Molly for a second. We got a couple minutes left. How about maybe there's something that I didn't ask you that you left out, Rashi or Molly, that some advice that you wanted to offer to somebody listen. You know, how about one piece of advice about the employment aspect, and also one about the caregiver aspect that we just didn't cover that they should walk away with?
Yeah, I think for for the employers that might be listening in, I think, you know, take a look at the tip sheet that we included in our toolkit, which we linked. I think, you know, spend time on any one of those things. Don't feel like you have to take on, you know, a million things all at once, a 5-year plan, all of that. There's really low-hanging fruit and small things that everybody could be doing, you know, whether it's updates to your employee handbook, starting an employee resource group, even just taking an inventory of who might be a caregiver or who might be a military spouse or veteran in your organization. There's really easy ways to start. And so I would urge any like folks that are employers on the phone to really start there. And then for caregivers, I think the one thing I would say is, you know, register on our website. That's really the easiest way to sort of connect to all these different resources. And really, you know, we just signed this partnership with LinkedIn. And so definitely take advantage of our LinkedIn premium offering. Adam, I'm sure you can speak to sort of how LinkedIn is just such a vital tool these days. And I think particularly right now with a lot of people, you know, we're all at home and we're spending a lot more time here. It has great online content. I think the premium offering gives you a lot more access to seeing different kinds of listings. And right now it's, you know, it's usually, I think like $30, maybe a little bit more a month. And it's offered free right now for any caregiver who's registered, you know, either through the VA's caregiver support program or with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. So take advantage of that offering and just get started wherever you are in your employment journey. I think LinkedIn can be a really powerful tool to get connected to others.
I think that's well stated. Congratulations on you and the partnership with LinkedIn. We as well have a partnership with LinkedIn who provides premium access free to the veterans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, anyone listening though, it is free to veterans and military spouses, the LinkedIn premium. Ironically, Rasha was on it this morning prior to coming on here. I actually was rooting around my premium and I decided I would watch this tutorial. It's a little bit longer, I haven't finished it yet, but it's extremely informative. And it's about you know, human resources and recruiting efforts, you know. So I learned a lot from that as well. So a great resource. I'm glad that you guys have partnered. Molly, any advice for anybody out there? Let's put Molly on the spot.
Yeah, I'm coming from both realms. So from the employment side and now the caregiver side. I think really for employers, and there are plenty of resources in that tip sheet that don't necessarily cost anything, or if there is, it's a very low cost amount, such as just marketing yourself as a caregiver-friendly corporation through your hiring posts, and also maybe sending out a caregivers or veteran community survey to your employees just to see if anyone is who will self-identify. And then for caregivers, I think really leaning on your community. Rashi mentioned it's always helpful to have a third party review your resume, and we understand that there are going to be gaps. I know HOH can definitely speak to the gaps of in employment, but there are ways that you can take those gaps in what you did during that time to really boost yourself up and say, I wasn't necessarily working full time, but I was doing something. I was caregiving, I was volunteering, whatever it may be. There are ways to word it, and there are plenty of tools through the LinkedIn premium. And also I know Hiring Our Heroes has some great resources on how to market that as well. So I think sometimes we hear that caregivers feel, okay, this is what my job is now, but there's opportunity out there once you get a better grasp and are able to, whenever you feel it's right for your family, to return to the job force. There are plenty of resources out there that are available. And so it's not all, I hope it's not all lost. And so definitely reach out to either Hiring Your Heroes or EDF. We're happy to connect you with any resources that may be available as well.
Thanks, Molly. So I'll give a plug in, a shout out, if you will, for a resource that we have developed here at Hiring Our Heroes, as Molly's very familiar with, is when it comes to military spouses and those caregivers. When building a resume, mycareerspark.org. Remember that, Molly, right? And or resumeengine.org. It is a resume engine for the military community. It's military friendly. It takes into consideration your volunteerism, your experience, those gaps, those skills that you have. and it fuses together in a really nice, good start for a resume. So a great resource. You can go to our website at hiringourheroes.org to find that, or mycareerspark.org for that as well. Artesia, I'm going to turn over to you real quick as well. Anything that you wanted to say to the group that we failed to ask you, maybe with reference to the employer focused or even the caregiver focused, please?
I just wanted to also mention that I included in the chat section our website, which will link you with all the different programs that were listed on the slide of all the smaller programs that we provide. It'll also link you with the CRD, which is the booklet of resources. The National Resource Directory will also be mentioned on that website. So it'll be your central location to review all the information that I've discussed today.
This is great. Oh, this has been a great session. I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure the participants have. If you have another minute or so, if you have a question, you can ask them. I know they were very thorough, both entities, just a wealth of knowledge. Just to remind everyone, this was recorded. It will be posted on hiringourheroes.org in our career community, so you can pull it down. There were some great resources listed on their slides. I was going to take a picture of one or two myself, and I missed it. So I'll have to go back. But I mean, from the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and Molly and Rashi, the tips that you had, you know, that was just, that's a really nice comprehensive sheet. I actually, that segues to a question. Do you do consulting? I won't necessarily, consulting is a bad word, but if an employer out there listening and wants to really deep dive into establishment of an ERG, so develop some strategies firsthand with your experience and expertise, can they reach out to you, Rashi?
Yeah, absolutely. We typically work with employers pretty closely on this. I think a lot of times, and it can just be like, hi, you know, we're trying to think through it. You don't have to have a whole strategy mapped out. If you're just looking for some advice and some easy places to start. I know for a lot of different organizations, you know, different things are possible for different people. Not everybody can do flexible and remote opportunities, for example, but we really believe that there is a solution out there for everyone to be more caregiver friendly. So we're happy to work with any kind of employer on developing a plan or giving them some ideas about ways they can do this.
Great, and thank you both very much for what you're doing. But the website that you put in our chat box, I direct everyone to the chat box that they put their website on. I think Artesia did the same thing as well. And Artesia, on what you're doing there, some of the great resources, the NRD, as I said, is a great resource for everyone to go to as well. So I really just want to end it then and thank both organizations. Thank for what you're doing, your commitment to our military community. This is recorded for anybody out there. Go to hiringourheroes.org, career community, to pull this down. Thank you for attending this session, and I wish you all the very best in what you're doing, and be safe out there. I think we're going to end it today. No more questions coming in, so have a great day. Thanks.